Good evening and welcome to the Keno Sports Complex, Tucson, Arizona, with Jake Ziven and Ross Smith of the Portland Timbers. My name is Matt Johnson with the Seattle Sounders. And Ross, it's good to be here. I mean, it's good to be in front of a match that kind of counts because it's Portland and Seattle.
Of course it does, the rivalry. Anything you do between Seattle and Portland, something's always at stake, whether it's on the soccer pitch or whether it's the banter outside. What city has the best coffee? What city has the best characteristics? Tonight it's the football, it's the bragging rights, and so as always, something on the line for it.
How about the banter from the crowd as well? The Timbers fans here, that I don't know if everybody picked up on that. That was the penalty shootout, right? Make, miss, make, miss. The Timbers, of course, with the bragging rights right now in this rivalry. Always fun, this game that we get to do together every year.
That's right, Jake. November 8th, epic match at CenturyLink Field. Here's the squads getting together. Seattle Sounders in their new Zulily kits, and the Portland Timbers just to our right. Just such a great atmosphere. Prior to this match was Houston and Sporting KC, and maybe there was 50, 80, 100 people, and even the fans take this seriously, guys. I mean, the place is packed. Last year, I think there was 4,500, close to 5,000, as we're taking a look at the Seattle Sounders. So the fans are into it, the coaches, and definitely the players, Ross.
The players are getting a bit chippy, a bit scrappy. You know, from the Seattle Sounders last match against Houston Dynamo, a few tackles flying in, a few players wanting to lay their mark on the opposition. Players fighting for position.
Brian Schmetzer lays out a 4-2-3-1, of course. In the back, Brian Meredith, the back four, McCrary, Campbell, who came over in the trade with Chicago, Jordy DeLem, Henry Wingo, the holding midfielders. 15-year-old Danny Leyva, we'll talk about him as he should be going 90 minutes tonight. That's the plan. Alex Roldan in front of those two, Buana, Ship, Marlon Vargas, and up top, Will Bruin, the 29-year-old from St. Louis. Ross, why don't you take a look at the Timbers lineup?
Well, the Portland Timbers, they'll set out a formation. They were used to that bottom success, 4-2-3-1. And it's a strong team as we're looking at Sebastian Blanco, a fine season for him. He's been looking sharp in preseason. You go through that spine, the back line with Mabiala, Cascante, nice strong center back pairing. Then through the middle, Paredes and Guzman. Paredes, I'm interested particular to see how he does. Struggled last season, but a chance for him to really stake his claim in the center midfield. And then Valeri, of course, Milano. Look for them combining.
The 20-year-old Paredes from Paraguay has got an opportunity to show Gio some things to get him more minutes in 2019. We are underway again. Great crowd in front of us, and Jake, I got to be honest, this is fun for us. We did this last year, but it's our first game. It's my first game of the broadcast season, and I'm ready to go.
Likewise, we didn't have neither of us had a very long off season, right? Of course, the Timbers making it to MLS Cup.
I was just going to correct you. Yeah, you had a shorter off season.
But hey, the Sounders, of course, made it to the Western Conference semifinals, and yeah, these games in Tucson are always fun. I think personally, for us, we get to see what each team kind of has brought out new, though there's not a lot new from the Timbers and the Sounders heading into 2019. And the Sounders just really two additions to their team. Trey Moose, the goalkeeper, who we'll see, and Jonathan Campbell, who's out there. And the Timbers so far bringing in Claude Dielna. We'll see him in the second half. A goalkeeper, Aljaz Ivicic, and then Marvin Laria and Renzo Zambrano, two guys from T2 who've been in the organization now with the first team. So it feels familiar. You know, we're not having to get used to a lot of new players like we sometimes do.
High press by Portland, immediately Meredith used, and Portland wins that ball back. Ship gives it up. DeLem cleaned things up, but there's Zarek Valentin, who I always gush over when we're at Providence Park. Valentin, such a steady right back for Portland.
He has that trust in the manager. You could see that build last year with Gio Savarese and Valentin is back and forth with Alvis Pau, who's going to be the starting right back, and Valentin won out, and coming into preseason, he's all of a sudden become one of the leaders of the team, the veterans, the voice that you would say a rather quiet Portland Timbers team can be at times. Valentin, he needs to be that presence.
Here's Campbell, see if he can do better the second time. The 25-year-old, again, just coming over. The trade with Chicago, December 28th for a 4th-round pick, gave it up. Seattle brought it back, but here's Portland on the go with the man in the middle, Diego Valeri.
I think what you will see tonight, Matt, for the Portland Timbers, what Jake and myself have been seeing at training, very sharp. And it doesn't seem to be an awful drop-off from MLS Cup final to now. It doesn't seem to be much of a break in terms of fitness from the Portland Timbers players. Very sharp in their passing and the movement.
Brought in over the head of Valeri. Buana scooped things up. control things through.
There's a decent ball from Blanco. Just getting it on his left foot, and it's a nice shape. He's just trying to put it into a dangerous area.
Back line with Seattle a bit shaky. See if Portland can take advantage early on.
Well, for Seattle, I was impressed with them for the opening, say, 60 minutes against Tucson Dynamo. Obviously, they conceded 3 goals against the Dynamo. Changes were made. It wasn't their squad at full strength when they were conceding goals. But we chatted with Brian Schmetzer today, and he did harp on about the 7 goals that they conceded against Atlanta in the first preseason games. He wasn't happy. The 3 goals they conceded against Houston. And so it let you know that they're caring about results. They're caring about the way the team is going about and whether they're putting the ball in the back of the net and keeping it out the other end.
Milano now taken away by Alex Roldan. Our first look at youngster Marlon Vargas. And here's Wingo back at his right back position, streaking up the right-hand side. Now slows down through Alex Roldan. Isn't Brian Schmetzer great to chat with when, you know, pre-game, whatever, just talking tactics? I know versus Houston, he wanted to go down that left-hand side.
Absolutely phenomenal with that. Matt, Jake and I were so impressed just how much time he was willing to give us, and we sat down, and of course you go preparing for just a couple of questions, anything. We don't want to take too much time. We ended up going another 5-6 questions with him.
Pawana, too heavy touch, out of bounds for a goal kick.
What stood out to me is that is very much, and you could say so it should be, but it's a manager who knows what his team is all about, and he knows how to build. And it's a manager who's very excited about all these young players that we're seeing on the pitch just now when we're expecting for this team, for the Sounders, to be rotated come that second half. He's excited about meshing the experienced players with the young players and how much these young players can learn even off the pitch with young guys playing cards later on in the afternoon or into the night with some of the senior players, so they get used to what it's like to be around these experienced pros.
It's a really young group here, as we see now on the field for Seattle. We're going to see that more, I think, as the game goes on. But a host of 16, 17-year-olds. Obviously, the Sounders under-17s won the national championship of the Development Academy last summer. They signed 8 of those guys to what's now known as the Tacoma Defiance. Brian Schmetzer was great talking about those guys and what that means to the future of the Sounders.
Looking for Bruin over his head into the hands of Attinella. Immediately rolled out. Scrappy early on. Settled out through Valentine. I talked to Brian the day before, and he said Houston want to go up the left-hand side through Smith and Victor Rodriguez, who ends up with two assists on the night. Tonight, they were looking to play out of the back. He wants to play out of the back consistently. They've had some challenges early on. Here's Milano probing to his left. Now brought back in. Loose ball, just knocked down and over the bar. What an opportunity for Portland. Should have been 1-0 in the 6th.
And it all started with Lucas Milano. A fantastic one. He looks like a man in confidence right now. Preseason, he scored 3 goals. You see him cutting right through the middle, lays it off, but it's his secondary runs. It's a great ball from Blanco going in, and it should be from Milano. It certainly should be from Valeri after that, who almost gets too much on top of the ball. Hits it into the ground over the bar.
Wingo brings it down. Jake, they're putting pressure on the back line. Yeah, you are.
Nah, not me. I'm not out there, that's for sure. The Portland Timbers certainly are. Look, there's a lot of speed in the attack, and we've seen that from these Timbers over the past few seasons. When they can get out quickly on a counterattack, it can be deadly. And Lucas Milano, I mean, speed is his #1 trait, right? You see it there. Great ball from Blanco. I mean, to be able to take that, he had to. It seemed like it wasn't quite in his path, quite maybe where it would have been ideal for him, but he handled that really well. And Milano's not a guy I think will score a lot with his head, right? I mean, that's certainly not his game. Had a chance there, and Valeri will tell you, I'm sure after this game, he should have scored.
I think any player will tell you on that pitch they should have scored in Milano's position, that you stick your head into it. And I just wonder, was he a little bit afraid of the goalkeeper of Meredith coming out? Was he thinking in 2 minds about that rather than getting his head on the end of the ball?
Attinella again gathers a ball too far for Will Bruin. Prior play foul on Guzman. Not enough the head of Buana. Here's Roldan once again. Beaten to it. Villafana can't control, out of bounds for a Seattle throw, taken immediately by Vargas.
Well, preseason, sometimes you can give it the criticism, it can fall guilty to players maybe not given their earnest, their full effort absolutely every single moment. But what we're seeing from the start here, and with Sounders players, a lot to prove from them. And the Timbers are going to have to match this energy from Seattle Sounders. And players, you could say there's a few positions out there on the Portland Timbers side that guys will feel tonight, right? Diego Valeri's on the pitch, David Guzman's on the pitch, Mabiala's on the pitch, right? This must be something that the manager Savarese is looking towards as the first team. So if I'm in the team right now and I thought that I was on the brink of getting in the first team, he's looking at me, so I got to have a good performance. Players for that example would be Julio Cascante, would be Christian Paredes.
And conversely, you have a 15-year-old Danny Leyva taking on Diego Valeri just now. And Danny Leyva looking to just look like a man amongst men. 15 years old. We'll talk about him as the match goes on. He should play 90 minutes. Blanco inside to Valeri. Guzman. And this is our first opportunity as Sounders broadcasters not to have Ozzie Alonso in the middle of the park. So weird not to see that number 6 paroling, the Cuban, just moving around off to Minnesota.
Sounds like a lot more responsibility, though, for Christian Roldan. Not as though he didn't have responsibility before. He's been a staple in Brian Schmetzer's lineup over the past few years. Obviously, he was away with the U.S. men's national team and did himself very well. But a guy that I imagine, Matt, the Seattle Sounders are going to be looking more towards to be that leader in the midfield. Absolutely. The man that just touched the ball, Jordi Delem, maybe an opportunity, more minutes in the middle with Gustav as Delem knocks it back to Meredith, but Christian Roldan obviously going to take that next step of leadership as he signed a couple-year extension and moving forward in that role in the locker room for Seattle. But it's about his brother tonight in the midfield, number 16, Alex Roldan. Interested to see him in an attacking minds, more used into that position getting forward. So to see how he handles Valeri just roaming in the backside of him. Alex Roldan took advantage of the injuries earlier in the season last year as Meredith, though it's offside on Milano, Meredith heads the ball away. Alex Roldan played in 10 of the first 11 while starting 7 last year, and while guys got healthy, his minutes obviously diminished. But Alex Roldan here showing Seattle's coaches that he should be remembered when he's picked for 11 or maybe the 18. Knocked out of bounds. Andy Polo, Seattle throw. Nice start to the match. Definitely not just knocking the ball in between the 30s. There's definitely a little bit of zip on both sides. You think defensively closing down. Blanco just going to ground there just to win the ball back. Nice tackle by Blanco. Taking the ball away from Wingo, and they'll go down Wingo's side here through Valeri. Out pops Wingo. Vargas helps with pressure. Guzman gives it up to Puana. Here's the 15-year-old Leyva. Vargas, soft touch in the middle of the park. McCrary makes up for it. Bruin out wide, looking for Ship. Not enough. If you know Bruin's out far wide right, nobody's really going to be in the middle of the box. So you need to see numbers that were going to be made up. And Harry Ship, who's playing in that number 10 position underneath Will Bruin, who Harry Ship was the type of player who would jump in for Brian Schmetzer last year wherever needed across that midfield, or if he had to be that attacking mind and pushing on, linking up with a striker. That type of player always seems to do whatever the manager says. Right, here's your assignment. Can you go out and carry that out? Pass Vargas. Middle of the park, looking for Valeri once again. Headed away by McCrary. Little touch by, again controlled by Portland over the bar, looking for a foul not given by referee Alejandro Mariscal. I think Harry Ship has done enough here to throw Blanco off, but prior to then it's Polo just using his strength, and then he picks his head up, trying to hit that big one. He almost gets it right just over the top of Valeri. It's a decent enough clearance. The Timbers still able to get a strike away from Blanco, who couldn't quite get the ball out of his feet.
Seeing some high pressure, it seems like, from the Timbers today, Russ. Yeah. That was what Giovanni Savarese said when he came and he wanted to do. Tried it at the beginning of the last year. Didn't work, and obviously the rest of the season did work for the Timbers. He got it right. Interesting to see them in this preseason, I think, at least in this match, coming out, pressing relatively high. This time the Sounders break the pressure. Here's Puana, left-hand side, trying to get around
final man, can't do it. Foul on Seattle.
Big part of that is we've been talking about in preseason. Jake is the starting point for Giovanni Savarese, so much further ahead. Whereas last year coming in, the players were having to figure out what's this manager all about? What is he wanting from me? And so it took time. And we chatted with Gio yesterday, and he said even double sessions, it was new for a lot of the players. And so they had to get used to it, putting in the work and making sure once they get the work in, then I'll start to scale back a little bit. And he says, I see the difference now. From day one, they're recognizing, right, if I give it a go this first session and I give everything, the manager, he isn't going to give us as many double sessions. So you're talking about the physical side of it, but then if you get the physical side up to speed as quick as possible, you can start working on all the tactical you want, and you can see the advancements.
I think you can see it. I think we saw it the first day that the Timbers were in Portland for preseason. It didn't look like anything had changed. It didn't look like anything different. It didn't look like a rusty group. It looked like they just got off the field at MLS Cup.
Yeah.
They almost had it.
Went on a quick holiday and they got right back into work.
But
Vargas from Ship down the right-hand side. Two men converge on him, and that ball from Wingo. Wingo gives up on it over the touchline. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
but it is Gio's team now, isn't it? We talked about this yesterday.
And it's Gio's team, and it's guys that are familiar with the system and the tactics. And Zarek Valentin said that they don't have to spend weeks and weeks on tactics this preseason. Everybody understands it. It's about fitness. It's about figuring out kind of what they want to do this year, you know, which could be a little different, but the big picture stuff is all covered, and that makes such a difference.
When we sat with Brian Schmetzer and we said, what do you see from Gio and what's different? And he said, well, what stood out to me is that Gio, he came in with an idea in his mind, and when that didn't work, he threw it out the window and he said, right, this is what's going to work. And he had 2 or 3 different looks for the Portland Timbers, and he said what he finally settled on, it was tough to deal with. It was very good, and so he figured things out, and he went into, I think about my own Seattle Sounders team, and sometimes it's not all about like structure. It's about what players are in certain positions then, and for his 4-2-3-1, when he had Clint Dempsey at the number 10 and Ladero out wide, he said my team looks so different compared to when Ladero came into that number 10 position. So you could have the same system, the same ideas, but you put different players at different levels of ability in those positions. It looks completely different.
We'll see Ladero on Saturday, FC Dallas Sounders. Obviously on SoundersFC.com here at Kino Sports Complex. Foul taken immediately by Leyva, finds Roldan given up in the middle of the park. But Portland did have that success versus Seattle a number of times last year in Portland. Brought to the middle, too close to Meredith. Obviously the own goal late in the year. Sounders got that match, but Mabiala put on a show in June. Sounders did go on a 12-match unbeaten streak, but Mabiala was just a monster June 30th.
That was quite a game, and Brian Schmetzer referred to that as kind of the turning point of the season, or at least the low point of the season. In the first half, where obviously the Sounders struggled, and then they went on that remarkable run the rest of the way. They went 15-2-2 the rest of the regular season after losing that game. 3-2. Mabiala with those 2 headers off corners. Samuel Montero's a great goal. First time the Timbers have ever won at CenturyLink Field.
Okay, that's enough.
The Timbers have the bragging rights this year, right? But that changes. I mean, we saw the Timbers win MLS Cup for the first time, have some bragging rights, and then the Sounders got it.
We talked about this yesterday. You're looking at the last 4 Western Conference champions right here, which is so impressive. You got the glitz, and we've all been down to LAFC's new stadium, and it's beautiful, but they get dumped out in the first round, surprisingly, by RSL. And these 2 teams here are representing not only Cascadia, but the West so often when the chips are down.
There's a lot of consistency with both these organizations, and there has been. And Seattle, 10 years in the playoffs, 10 years in MLS, 10 years in the playoffs. It's tied for the longest streak in MLS history with the LA Galaxy, who did it their first 10 years in the league. And that was a different MLS, right, from 1996 to 2005. We asked Brian Schmetzer about that, and he said, essentially that they've always had, the Sounders have always had kind of that tradition of success.
Vargas down the right-hand side, brought in for Bruin. Overshoots him. Valentin nods it out of bounds. Bawana looking to take this quickly. But nice ball from the 18-year-old Marlon Vargas.
Well, he'll grow with confidence from this run alone. Just getting in behind Villafani. It's a lovely ball. And he decides to take it on first time. A bit too heavy going out the other side. Valentin's able to clean it up. But still, he's in the right position. He's trying to put it on early into Bruin.
McCrary Rolled on, Ship. Paredes shuts him down. Here's McCrary down the left-hand side. Wiped out. Ball goes right to Seattle. Bawana gives it up. Top of the box.
Again, you're seeing some challenges go in. Players leaving their feet to try and get stuck in.
Milano down the middle of the park. Can he get to it? Delem right there upsets it back to Meredith. But you saw Milano's speed.
And credit to Delem because he got back. And if he hasn't made that challenge in, Milano then is going